hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
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 There you go. Is that better?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Blind as a bat.
The Canuckonomicon is an ancient tome buried deep within the Canadian Arctic. There, it is guarded by the fearsome wizard, Shania Twain. The Canuckonomicon of the mad Canadian Celine Dion contains many secrets of forgotten lore, ancient wisdom, and even recent events.
Recent events.
Yes. But before we get to that,
I am not watching it.
Happy Father's Day.
Let me see. Oh, Hobo with a Shotgun.
Hobo with a Shotgun.
I love this movie.
I know you do.
It actually makes me cry a little bit at the end.
So I got that from the lobby for you last October.
That's great. I received a gift on air.
Yeah, that was the idea.
It's a good thing I liked it. What if I didn't like it? It'd be like, thanks.
I would have expected you to rib me for it.
Yeah. I love that movie, though.
I know you do.
All right. Well, this is the Father's Day edition of
the Canuckonomicon.
It is, yeah.
I'm Junior. This is my dad and half-deaf sound engineer, Dirty Clyde.
Pardon me? I have hearing aids, but they're terrible. I feel like Chekhov in Wrath of Khan.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Those horrible little things.
Get them out of my ears.
Who was the other guy that was with Chekhov? Because there was the two of them.
Oh. But was it Sulu?
I don't know.
It was someone.
I think it was a red shirt.
Are you sure?
It wasn't Sulu.
Was it Scott?
It wasn't Scotty. It wasn't Sulu. It was just like some generic guy that was with him.
Oh, like Delgado Brown, one of those guys they always send down. They look at each other just before they leave. Oh, crap.
Yeah, no, I just all I remember about that is that there's no way Khan ever actually met Chekhov. Because the episode of Starseed that had Khan in it,
Chekhov wasn't on yet.
But so they came up with a kind of a hidden canon. Is that the reason Chekhov wasn't on that episode? It should have been his first one, but he had like terrible diarrhea, and so he was holding up the washrooms, and Khan had to go to the bathroom. So when Chekhov came out, Khan pointed at it and went, "I never forget a face."
That's good. I like you. Not bad at all.
All right, let's get down to brass tacks, guys. I was going to talk about fur-bearing trout today.
Wow.
I was going to talk about hoop snakes and other weird fearsome critters that live in the woods. But last night, which is June 8th, 2019, something happened. Something big happened. I was informed by my Reddit expert, Pixie, my wife, that something was going on that for us here at the Canuckonomicon was of monumental proportions. Paul Hellyer did an Ask Me Anything on Reddit.com.
Paul Hellyer didn't ask you.
He did an Ask Me Anything.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And did you ask him anything?
I wasn't on soon enough. I didn't find out soon enough. But for those who are wondering, Reddit.com is an online bulletin board system. People can create bulletin boards that are called Reddits to cover just about any topic they want. The Ask Me Anything Reddit, which is also called the AMA Reddit, is primarily devoted to open discourse with interesting people. People like Paul Hellyer. Here's how he introduced himself. I am a 95-year-old former Canadian Minister of Defense and Transport Minister. I want to discuss my experience with the cabal/deep state, global warming, politics, and extraterrestrials. Ask me anything.
Wow.
I know.
And so you obviously checked out that list.
I totally did.
Mm-hmm.
So, friends, countrymen, colleagues, when I heard this, there was absolutely no force on earth that could keep me from getting in there and covering it. Had Pleiadians come down and asked me to stop, I might have, but probably not. I definitely would have stopped if I had been contacted by dragon moths, because Mothman is a dragon moth, and I have deep respect for Mothman.
Yeah, you have to have deep respect for a guy who flies towards streetlights all day long. It's like, oh God, a light.
Oh crap, why is it hitting my head? That's not the moon at all.
His one fatal flaw.
Bright lights.
Just open the furnace cover and in he goes.
So, if you're listening to this episode, don't know who Paul Hellyer is, go back, check out episode 3, where we covered Paul Hellyer a little more in depth. We did kind of more of a broader overview of him. Today, I'm not going to try and break down what specifically he's referring to in any of these answers, unless I think it warrants it. Instead, today's kind of a relaxed fit episode. We just finished a big 2-parter. We just dealt with some major technical difficulties.
No, we didn't. We re-recorded episode 4, and then I went the next morning. It saved.
Yeah, I remember. I remember you checking.
To the Almighty One that I saved it on
GarageBand.
GarageBand.
Yeah.
I saved it as an MP3, and I shared it to my desktop. And don't you know it? The next morning, I go to load it, and it has all of the tracks that we created.
But it's all blank.
But they're blank.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. Like, I swear, I think the Royal Canadian Air Force and the RCMP are trying to keep us from getting that episode out.
That Dave Broadfoot.
Is that who it is?
Air Force.
A
little Canadian humor.
That was a deep cut.
Oh.
Man.
You have to be old to. He predated that other guy, the guy that always does the hour has 22 minutes.
Oh, frick. That guy, he did the one that did Talking to Americans too, right?
Yeah, him.
Oh, and he does the rants.
Yeah, he's terrible.
I can't remember his name. I think Laura likes him.
His sketch-com is funny, but his rants are annoying.
They're long. It's just him walking and talking fast about stuff in his kind of thinly maritime accent.
Can't remember his name now.
Oh, that's going to bother me now.
No, it doesn't bother me at all.
Okay. So anyways, and we also just got off covering a predatory cult leader. So I want people to have some fun today. I want you to grab a drink. I want you to sit back, relax, and let's read my curated list of answers from Paul Hellyer's Ask Me Anything. To begin with, people on Reddit were quite incredulous about Paul Hellyer. They couldn't believe that a former high-ranking member of government would actually believe the things that he does. One Redditor actually asked him if this was for real, to which somebody immediately responded, "This can't be real." And then the next post was a link to Paul Hellyer's Wikipedia page where they're like, "Oh my gosh, he's actually for real." So it was, I was a bit curious as to why a 95-year-old man would decide to do an Ask Me Anything. Not only that, but he actually did a pretty good job. This did not have the feel of somebody who is 95 trying to tackle new technology in some way. But somebody actually asked him what made him decide to do this. As he put it, I have been making speeches, attending conferences, and writing books on most of these subjects for about 13 years, with significant results, but nothing comparable to what is necessary. Some young friends suggested an AMA is an efficient way to get the message out, so I agreed because of the urgency of exposing the truth has increased exponentially in the last 2 or 3 years. You can find dozens of good books on the subjects of UFOs and ETs. The first one that I read 14 years ago was The Day After Roswell by Lieutenant Colonel Philip Corso. A recent book by one of the giants of ufology is Unacknowledged by Stephen Greer, MD. So that's how we're starting off.
I've not read either of those. just saying to yous.
Yeah, so from here on out, after any of the answers he gives to these questions, I want you to feel free to jump in because we had one guy who went on multiple web pages to get in touch with Paul Hellyer during the Ask Me Anything. He is a Redditor by the name of Erotic Thunderpants.
Nice.
He was desperate to get his questions answered. He asked them multiple times on the Ask Me Anything, and Paul Hellyer, gracious Canadian that he is, actually posted his response under each of the times he asked, because he's just that good of a guy.
Copy paste.
And this guy even posted the question on a YouTube video of his that I ended up watching as part of this. So let's get into these questions by Erotic Thunderpants. So, Erotic Thunderpants, can you elaborate on your experiences with extraterrestrials? Hellyer. I have only been in direct contact once, personally, when I was encouraged to keep up the good work I have been doing. I was told there are 8 different species working together with individuals like me who are involved with disclosure and spreading the truth. They also enhanced my ability to communicate telepathically. Redditor Horsenot then explained what everyone else was thinking. Oh boy, this is going to be a fun AMA. So, you may recall the question, they also enhanced my ability to communicate telepathically. Redditor Tanks for Me luckily also had the same question and a list of others. I'll provide the questions and answers in an interview format to make them a little easier to parse. Feel free to interrupt at any time to comment. Tanks. Is this a natural telepathic communication without any technology? Or did you elect to receive implant devices to enable you to do so? Hellyer, it is a natural communication without technology.
He just learned it. A learned behavior.
He just happens to be telepathic, I guess.
Well, they taught him how. It's like you're listening to us, but your ears don't work.
Yeah. So, Tanks, why haven't these species publicly announced their existence? Is it a galactic rule to avoid broad contact with an alien species until they reach a certain point of technological advancement on their own in order to preserve their own culture? Are we being quarantined because we are too violent? Are the human governments withholding their existence on their own for their own motives? If so, what would those motives be? Hellyer, some have. Valiant's Thor, the benevolent Venusian with an IQ of 1200, lived in the Pentagon for 3 or 4 years, offered us Earthlings a richer, healthier life in exchange for giving up our nuclear weapons. His offer was not accepted. More on Thor, including his picture in my latest book, Hope Restored. As an aside, I own that book. I bought it as soon as I read about Valiant's Thor, the benevolent Venusian with an IQ of 1200.
There is no frickin' way there are people on Venus.
I'll learn more in his book, Hope Restored, and
yes, you will.
I will be doing an episode on that later. Because,
in my opinion, Paul Hellyer takes way too much airtime from your good show.
Are you kidding me? This is gold.
It is gold. You're right.
The benevolent Venusian with an IQ of 1200.
Like that. That's part of his name. That's actually on his documents.
So Tanks then asked, why haven't they shared their technology? Faster than light travel, efficient energy production, etc. If according to your wiki, you say they don't believe we are good stewards of our planet, which is entirely agreeable, then why don't they help us? Hellyer, they shared their technology and both the US and Russia have adopted it for military purposes. Some has spilled over, including microchips used in our smartphones. Unfortunately, we could have had more in agriculture and medicine, for example, if we had abandoned our warlike ways. So they're space hippies.
Yeah, because if you're a spacefaring society, you have no need for weapons for defense.
I guess
against one another.
According to your wiki page, you claim some of these species are living on Mars, Venus, and one of Saturn's moons. So why haven't we found evidence of their habitats? The US has a lease on Mars, and according to Courtney Brown, head of the Farsight Institute, the Martians have at least 2 colonies on Earth. Really want that to sink in. The US has a lease on a part of Mars. And then he talks about something called the Farsight Institute.
Right.
Do you know what the Farsight Institute is?
Isn't it where that guy makes those funny comics about animals and stuff?
That's Farside.
Oh.
No, the Farsight Institute is a group of people that dress like it's a 1950s science fiction film and claim to have remote viewing sessions.
Ow.
This is one of his major sources of information.
A cosplay group.
A remote viewing group. I've heard of the Farsight Institute through another podcast called Knowledge Fight, which covers all of that angry American guy.
Oh, you like him too. You talk about him all the time.
I don't like him.
You love him.
I love listening to people talk about him because he's the guy, Alex Jones. They cover all of Alex Jones' show. But they also occasionally cover a woman named Carrie Cassidy, who runs something called Project Camelot. And she's basically Alex Jones light, but with aliens. And she interviews Courtney Brown of the Farsight Institute a couple of times. And his claims are wacky. He claims that he's seen, he's able to scry, to use his remote viewing through both time and space. And according to him, he actually was even able to remote view the crucifixion of Christ.
Really? So what they mean by remote viewing is they can go back in time or whatever.
Yeah, just using their minds. And they can see things that happen as they do now or in the past or even in the future. And he'll make lists of claims of things that are going to happen over the course of a year. He does a 1-year forecast.
How close has he gotten?
It's all, what's it called? It's all mind tricks.
Yeah.
Like if you listen to his claims, it's always like, there will be a terrible calamity on this day. In somewhere on Earth on this day, it'll be awful and we'll all remember it. And then it'll be like,
so he'll just fish.
He'll just find something.
Fish the internet to find something.
Yeah. And he'll be like, oh, look, it was terrible.
It was terrible.
There was a car accident. That's what I was predicting.
An alligator ate a baby.
Yeah, it was awful. It's always stuff like that. It's I can't remember what the word for it is right now, but it's that kind of the same thing that like fortune tellers and palm readers.
Prognosticate No, I don't know.
It's a big word.
It is a big word.
And I'm not drunk enough to remember it. So. Anyways, continuing on. Tanks then asked if he's met any of the aliens in person or seen pictures of them. Are they all humanoid, i.e. bipedal, head and shoulders, 2 eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs, etc.? Or are some of them wildly different in biology, like, the Rachni from Mass Effect? If they are all humanoid, then what traits of humanoid biology make it so special that it's the only body type that can allow for a technologically advanced species? Hellyer, I have seen many pictures. They are not all humanoid, and some are quite different in appearance. To the best of my knowledge, I have only been in their direct presence once. I am not a biologist, so you will have to look elsewhere for the range of difference, which is considerable. Tanks, can we eat the same food as any of them? If so, are they able to eat as huge a range of foods as humans? I'm a huge foodie, so if this is all true, and if we can eat their food, I would be in heaven. Hellyer, again, there are marked differences between species in respect of what they eat and their digestive systems, which I have been told are quite different from our own.
He's seen pictures, but he doesn't want to describe them.
No.
It's best to talk to a biologist. They eat food, but not like ours, and their digestive systems are very different. But I can't really tell you about that.
Well, and later on he goes and says he's a generalist, not a universalist. So he doesn't know everything about them. He just...
The shit I shovel is very general in in its makeup.
So Tanks asks that if he's openly talking about this on Reddit, then that would mean that their existence is unclassified, because otherwise you'd be thrown in prison for the next 10 years. Why is this unclassified, yet the governments won't talk about it? Governments, especially the US government, have been working with several species for decades and know an incredible amount about them. They have spent billions denying the existence of UFOs, ETs, and their incredible characteristics. Only in recent days, as in last week, have former US defense officials admitted to the reality of UFOs. I personally wonder about their motives. Unlike some whistleblowers, I have broken no oaths. All my information has been gained from interviews and documents that have come my way, but our discussion today has barely scratched the surface of these subjects. You need to read credible books. My books and others.
In order to believe what I am about to tell you,
his books are credible.
You must read my books and other ones that I might suggest to you.
And he suggests a lot of books throughout this. That seems to be one of his favorite things, and they're very rarely his. I think I might have mentioned the only time that I could find where he directly tells you to go take out one of his books.
Right.
And that's because he has that picture of Valiant Thor in it.
He's got a picture of him.
He's apparently got a picture of Valiant Thor in that book.
Me with Valiant Thor at Malibu.
Valiant Thor, the benevolent Venusian with an IQ of 1200.
That's right. That's pretty high.
That's immeasurably high. I don't even think the IQ test can go above 200. I think it caps out at a certain point.
This is from a 4-year-old man?
95.
95-year-old guy. Poor sap. Taking advantage of himself like that.
I really don't feel that bad for him.
He's a well-to-do self-abuse.
He's a well-to-do white guy. I think he's doing just fine. He's living his best life. Mm-hmm. So another Redditor named Astrofound. The second part's capitalized, so it's not just Astrofound, it's Astrofound!
He tried using the lowercase, but someone already took it.
Asked what I think was a really good question. If you could only show one single piece of evidence to back up your claim of extraterrestrial life, Which piece of evidence would you choose? What single piece is most convincing? Hello. Thank you for your question. One of the earliest pieces of convincing evidence for myself was a 2-hour interview I conducted with Colonel Charles Halt, who had been the deputy base commander of the twin United States Air Force bases in England just outside RAF Woodbridge, where he said a UFO incident changed the course of his life. There had been multiple ongoing sightings by non-commissioned officers of strange lights in the forest. The reports had been brushed off as imagination, as is often the case with such sightings. There was a sighting during a Christmas Eve banquet which led to the commanding officer to send Halt to investigate. Halt personally related it to me, saying, "I am going out to put an end to this damn nonsense once and for all." Once he and his associates reached the area of the lights, they found a parked UFO, and he said, "My life was changed forever." Incidentally, the visitors were very interested in the nuclear installations, which is considered one of the most important reasons they are taking an interest in our planet, because they think we are likely to do something irresponsible and make it uninhabitable. Halt was promoted to full colonel later, and has since written his own book describing the events that took place with pictures and evidence of the event. The book is called The Halt Perspective. I have also included a summary of the 2-hour interview in my first book, Light at the End of the Tunnel, A Survival Plan for the Human Species. You can read the first 35 pages online for free, or find more free resources on Google. Nick Poe provided me with the case summary when it crossed his desk, which was why I approached Charles Halt for the interview. So,
That is a well-documented event.
well, sure, but his piece of rock-hard, solid evidence is an interview.
An interview, yes.
He not Valiant's Thor.
No.
I guess I don't know if he knows Valiant's Thor. I mean, Valiant's Thor worked in the Pentagon, so maybe he does.
Maybe.
But I don't know why you wouldn't just call up one of your alien buddies that's contacted you and say, "Hey, come on down and we'll have some dinner tonight.
I'll spill the beans.
We'll spill the beans. We'll get together. We'll make some hybrid space babies."
Yeah. Him and his Pentagon transmorph. Anyway.
Hellyer was asked, though never personally responded to this question. He seems to be quite a religious man, so how does he reconcile that with believing in aliens? And there's a video out there. Mm-hmm. Paul Hellyer answers this question in the video, and he states that aliens are not only more advanced than us technologically, they are also more advanced than us spiritually.
Oh, yeah.
And they all serve our creator God. So, there you go. Aliens are Christians.
There you go. Well, he didn't say that.
No, that's true.
They all serve our creator God.
That's a very universalist thing to say, because he is a but although he's not a universalist, he's a generalist.
Yes. Well, but in his religion, he's still a generalist.
Pretty much.
So there.
So Redditor Glogs also asked an important question, namely, what was Hellyers' aha moment when it came to aliens? Hellyer responded that it wasn't a single event, rather it was a natural progression over time throughout 2005, which is the same conclusion that I came up with when I was doing my research on the topic. He elaborates. One of the main parts of the process started in 2005 after reading The Day After Roswell by Philip J. Corso. It is full of information about the crashes near Roswell in 1947. He claimed to have seen some Zeta Reticuli, which who had been killed. So I don't know what a Zeta Reticuli is.
It's those little people with the big heads.
Okay,
maybe.
I've heard them called other things. So
Well, maybe that's.
I can't remember if they're the Draconians or... Well, they're not Pleiadians. Pleiadians are blonde. They're not dragon moths, because Mothman's a dragon moth.
That's right, and he's real.
That's right.
There's this other stupid thing he does, which is he flies into windows.
Oh, yeah.
And then he
you
gets
have to
caught,
let him out.
And then he's on his back, and he can't get himself back right around.
Can I just say, that semester of university where Mothman was my roommate was the worst.
I'll bet he's a pig. You always catch him over the garbage.
Do you know how many bridges collapsed that year? It was so inconvenient. I kept having to redirect my drive because every time I went somewhere with Mothman, a damn bridge would collapse. It was the worst.
Yeah, we Ben learned everything he knows from an interview with Mothman.
So, anyways, So Corso claimed to have seen some of the Zeta Reticuli who had been killed. Later, when he was in charge of the section of the army that handled foreign material, he handed pieces of the wreckage to select American corporations to investigate and use to create new products. Some of these things that he claimed were retrieved from the crash were night vision goggles and Kevlar. Corso listed a whole series of advanced technology in his book. Most important of all was when I finished reading the book, I knew the information was real because I personally recognized the names of the generals and the Air Force bases he mentioned in the book. Subsequently, I checked the book out with a retired Air Force general who said every word is true and more. He then spent 20 minutes telling me about the more, including the fact that there had been face-to-face meetings between U.S. officials and visitors from other star systems.
Face to maw.
Well, in some cases. Face to anus mouth, because there are those sea cucumber ones that come up from Alpha Centauri.
Really?
No, I'm just making that
from somewhere. Oh, yeah. I thought you were telling me something that you'd heard. No. I can't distinguish fact from fiction in the things you say.
No, I'm just like, well, we're assuming that aliens even have anuses and that they are separate from their mouths.
Yeah, why would they even bother eating? Why would they just not open up certain pores in their skin?
Just absorb nutrients.
Absorb nutrients from the environment, and then I don't know what the byproduct would be.
Sweat,
dark matter.
Dark matter. That's right. There is no byproduct. They just exude toxin constantly. That said, not all of the questions were regarding space aliens and telepathy, however. Some actually did touch on more serious topics, and I'm not being facetious here. Redditor The Sooner 55 asked Paul what he felt was the most difficult issue of his career. Paul replied, "The toughest issue came when I was a Minister of National Defense, during the final stages of debate on the bill to unify the Canadian Armed Forces, which had been so difficult and contentious. It was 1967, our centennial year, and the House of Commons was anxious to adjourn for the summer. Prime Minister Pearson proposed leaving the final stage of the bill until the next session in the fall. I knew that it would kill the bill, and we would have to start all over again. My late wife, Ellen, and I were invited to join the Prime Minister and Mrs. Pearson in their private railway car en route to Quebec City for the funeral of Canada's Governor-General, George Vanier. After dinner, the Prime Minister and I went into a private room to chat. He repeated his plan. I said that he was the boss and could do as he liked, but if he postponed the debate until fall, he would have to get another minister to finish it. You are serious, he said. Yes, I replied. In that case, the bill will be one of the two completed before we adjourn. Crisis over.
That was hard.
Yeah. Like,
He just threatened to quit, and then they...
well, but at the same time, these actual questions were being asked.
Yes.
What I find interesting about this, he names Prime Minister, he names the Governor General, he doesn't name the U.S. Air Force General that he went over the book with.
No.
Like, in his actual story that we can prove happened, because it was one of the last two bills debated, and
Yeah.
it did get passed. We now have a unified Canadian Armed Forces.
Yes. Then he names names.
Yeah. And this one's the next more serious question that he was asked that I thought was really good is probably contains the most reasonable thing he says about Area 51 in it. The question was regarding the Canadian Avro Arrow project, which was one of the first supersonic fighter jets ever developed. So those who don't know, it wasn't the F-51 or whatever, the F-14 or whatever that fighter jet is, F-15, whatever. I don't remember which one it was. It was one of the...
Phantom or whatever it was called.
Yeah. That wasn't the first. Believe it or not, Canada actually had the first one. But then the project was mysteriously canceled and kind of disappeared into the ether. As he puts it, the Avro Arrow was one of Canada's greatest achievements. It was the best in the world in its time. There were several factors that led to its demise. I blame faulty intelligence on the part of the U.S. Air Force. They overestimated the imminence and importance of Soviet missiles and when they would replace manned aircraft. Then the Royal Canadian Air Force was somewhat culpable because it insisted on creating its own black box instead of buying one off the shelf. The result was that the Avro Arrow was taking too much of the defense budget at the expense of Army and Navy. I blame Prime Minister Diefenbaker for the decision to cancel the program and cut up the existing planes with acetylene torches. But years later, I saw documents that proved the decision had been made by the Chief of the Air Staff and the Deputy Minister of Defense. The Minister of Defense at the time had asked them if they had made an effort to give one or more of the airplanes to museums, and they insisted that they had without success. I have often doubted the extent of that effort. One aircraft of the 6 that had come off the line had disappeared. There has been a long search to try and find it. Finally, a few years ago, I learned from a retired U.S. Navy intelligence officer that it is in the Air Force Museum in that highly guarded of Nevada known as Area 51.
They have an Avro Arrow.
And you know what? Of the things that people have claimed about Area 51, I believe that.
Yeah.
Because that totally tracks with what the actual known purpose of Area 51 was, which was making experimental aircraft.
R&D.
And at the time, the Avro Arrow was the best. It was the best.
Yeah. So they commandeered one.
Yeah. And of course, they're not going to tell Canada that they have one. They're not going to tell one of their closest allies, yeah, we stole one of your planes.
Yeah.
Even if we were planning on destroying it, that just would not be kosher. But it was a cutting edge supersonic technology, so why would you not take one if you have the opportunity to take one and to run your own experiments and use what was already discovered and learned in that aircraft to develop your own? Why let all that R&D go to waste? So of the many things that have been claimed about Area 51 over the years, this actually tracks with what we do know about it.
Yeah.
Paul also offered his opinions on why it's been so hard to combat climate change and other major issues on the political scale. I think there have been two problems: indifference and politics. Many people are too preoccupied with their daily lives to spend much time acknowledging that the planetary house is on fire. Some have been influenced by propaganda paid for by the oil cartel. A major problem is the number of jobs, read votes, that would be affected by serious attention to the problem and the tendency for politicians to let their short-term interests of getting re-elected take precedence over the life and death issues of the young. Paul eventually explained what he believes the deep state is comprised of. Redditor Dafta asked him if the Guardian article claiming that he believes the Illuminati are hiding world-saving technologies from us. Hellyer explained, "The Guardian is close, but not 100% accurate. I have blamed the cabal, which comprises the Illuminati, the Three Sisters, as I call them, the Bilderbergers, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Banking Cartel, the Oil Cartel, the transnational corporations, the intelligence agencies, including the CIA, FBI, NSA, the British MI6, Israeli Mossad, and a very large swath of the US military, have collectively suppressed knowledge of zero-point energy, which is the only hope to replace fossil fuels fast enough to stop the worst effects of global warming. But zero-point energy was not brought to us by the aliens. God gave it to us when he created the cosmos. The American military developed it decades ago, as did other inventors and entrepreneurs. It is still on the secret list. We must gain access and start using it at once if we want to save thousands of lives. 0-point energy.
Now, what are they talking about there? Cold fusion? Are they talking about...
Perpetual motion.
Right.
0-point energy is this idea of energy that takes less energy going in than it outputs. So you put in less energy to start some sort of reaction or something, and then it outputs more energy. It flies in the face of thermodynamics. It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
And there have been a number of people that have claimed to have basically developed 0-point energy. I could probably do a whole breakdown of 0-point energy, but it doesn't really fit with our show that well. A, and B, there's like 1,000 different podcasts that'll cover 0-point energy for you guys if you're really interested.
Yeah.
But it's a whole thing in the conspiracy community that basically we have this infinite energy resource out there that we just need to discover because everything we believe is wrong and thermodynamics is wrong and blah, 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 blah.
If it existed, Elon Musk could have it on his spaceship.
Oh, he would absolutely have it on his spaceship because he is an alien.
Yeah.
He's a dragon moth, clearly.
Oh, you think?
Well, he's my roommate from back in university, so he's the Mothman.
Another fabrication. So there you have it, Paul Hellyer, folks.
Not done yet. There's still one more. I will say that Paul, he reveals one very important piece of information. I think this will bust the whole case on Paul Hellyer wide open. His favorite piece of music is Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
Wow. That
Paul Hellyer is an alien, confirmed. Who says their favorite piece of music is Beethoven's Ninth Symphony?
Well, it is a pretty good piece of music.
Is it your favorite?
It was for a time.
Actually?
Mm-hmm. You don't like it? You haven't listened to it.
I have listened to it. I like it just fine, but I would never call it my favorite.
Well, he probably doesn't listen to, like, Mastodon or whatever the heck else you listen to. I mean, that's hard. Like, I mean, if someone asks you, what's your favorite color? You just pick the
Purple.
You pick the first color that comes to your mind.
Yeah.
And so someone asked him, what's your favorite piece of music? And he's like, oh, crap, I'm 95. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
But yeah, you're right. That's all we have for today. I'm going to be keeping tabs on Mr. Hellyer. I'm going to be checking out any new books he releases. I'm going to keep you guys in the loop. And if I find anything else that's worth talking about, you'll find it here on the Canuckonomicon.
The Paul Hellyer channel.
The Paul Hellyer channel. Oh my goodness. This was a really, really, really fun event that happened. There's so much more in there. I didn't feel like pulling out every funny thing that he says because there's a lot.
Oh yeah, he's a comic genius.
He's a kook.
A real kook. He's a kook, a
boob, and a rube.
And a rube. All three.
There you go.
And you'd have to listen to...
That was the Brother 12 episodes
in order to get that little inside joke. With that, happy Father's Day to all those pappies out there.
That's right.
That's from another pappy.
Yep. And, everybody keep your eyes open, keep safe. Canuckonomicon is a production of Crossing Clay Studios. We can be found on Twitter at Canuckonomicon, and you can contact us through email at canuckonomicon@gmail.com. Please be sure to share us with your friends and family, and keep your eyes open.